The note was folded twice, pressed in my palm during a hug that lasted 1 second too long. 5 words. That's all it took to turn the happiest night of my girlfriend's life into the moment my whole world cracked open. Everyone around us was laughing, taking photos, popping champagne for her graduation. But her mother's eyes told me something different. She wasn't celebrating. She was warning me. And when I finally unfolded that paper in a bathroom, hands shaking, I understood why she'd been staring at me all night like she already knew how this story was going to end. The backyard was strung with fairy lights, and everywhere I looked there were balloons shaped like graduation caps bobbing against the porch railing. Mia had worked 4 years for this night. Nursing school, double shifts at the diner to pay for textbooks. Nights she cried on my shoulder convinced she'd fail out. Now she stood in the middle of her parents' backyard in a green dress, diploma tube tucked under one arm, glowing like she'd swallowed the sun. I loved her. I want to say that clearly, because everything that happened after didn't change that. Her mother, Diane, had never liked me much. Polite at dinners, cool at holidays, the kind of woman who asked about my job like she was checking a box on a form. I figured it was normal. No mother thinks the guy dating her daughter is good enough. I never took it personally. Mia always said, she'll come around. She's just protective. That night, Diane hugged me when I arrived. That alone was strange. She smelled like white wine and something sharper underneath, like she'd been crying before touching up her makeup. She pulled back, held my face in both hands the way you'd hold something breakable, and said, "I'm so glad you're here tonight, Daniel." Really? Her voice cracked on the word really. Then she slipped something into my hand and walked away before I could ask what it was. I didn't look at it right away. There was cake to cut, photos with Mia's grandparents, her father giving a speech that made half the yard cry. I kept the folded paper crushed in my fist through all of it, my palms sweating around the edges. Something about the way Diane's eyes had followed me across the yard all evening, not with anger, but with something closer to grief, made my stomach twist every time our eyes met. Finally, during the toasts, I slipped inside to the bathroom and unfolded it under the flickering light. 5 words. Blue ink, shaky handwriting. He is not your father. I read it 4 times before it made any sense, and even then, it didn't make sense because it wasn't about me. It wasn't a warning about me at all. I stood there gripping the edge of the sink, and every innocent conversation from the last 2 years rearranged itself in my head. Mia's father, Robert, tall, quiet, the kind of man who fixed things around the house without being asked and never raised his voice, had always seemed a little distant from Mia in a way I chalked up to personality. Reserved, old-fashioned, not a hugger. I'd never once thought there was a reason behind it beyond that. When I came back outside, Diane was waiting by the drink table like she'd been counting the seconds. She didn't ask if I'd read it. She already knew. "You weren't supposed to see that until later," she whispered, gripping my wrist. I wrote it for myself, to work up the courage to finally tell her. It fell out of my purse. I panicked, and I don't know why I gave it to you, instead of just picking it back up. I think some part of me wanted someone else to know I wasn't crazy for carrying this for 23 years. "Diane," I said, "this isn't mine to carry." "I know," she said, and her eyes filled. "But I'm asking you to help me carry it anyway, just until tonight is over. Please don't let her see my face right now. She'll know something's wrong. I want to be honest." In that moment, I almost told her no. I almost walked back into that party and pretended my pocket was empty and my mind was clear, because some secrets are landmines, and once you know where they're buried, you're responsible for not stepping wrong. But I looked at Mia across the yard, laughing with her cousins, diploma tube resting against her shoulder like a trophy, and I understood that whatever happened next, tonight couldn't be the night it happened. Not this one. She'd waited too long for this one. So I smiled. I laughed at Robert's terrible jokes. I danced with Mia under lights that suddenly felt like they were mocking me. I held her hand during the final toast and clapped until my palms hurt, all while a 5-word sentence sat lodged in my chest like a stone I'd swallowed whole. It was near midnight, after most of the guests had gone, that Mia found me sitting alone on the porch steps. "You've been quiet," she said, sitting beside me, still buzzing from champagne and joy. Everything okay? I almost lied. God, I almost did. But I learned a long time ago, partly from a story I once watched on a channel called Hero Dad Stories about a man who kept a family secret for 30 years and lost his daughter's trust the moment she found out on her own that secrets don't stay buried. They just wait for the worst possible time to dig themselves up. And I didn't want to be the man standing there when that happened, having known and said nothing. Your mom gave me something tonight, I said carefully. I think it's something she needs to tell you herself, but I don't think she's going to unless someone helps her find the courage. Mia's smile faded slowly, like a light dimming. What kind of something? I didn't answer with the words. I couldn't. Instead, I said, I think you should talk to her. Tonight, if you can. Gently. What followed wasn't a scene from a movie. There was no screaming, no dishes thrown. Mia walked into the kitchen where Diane was washing wine glasses with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, and I watched through the window as two women who loved each other more than anything stood in painful silence before Diane finally put down the glass she was holding and started to speak. I found out later, much later, that the truth was messier and more human than any of us expected. Before Robert, Diane had been involved with another man for a short time during a period when she and Robert had separated. She'd gotten pregnant not knowing which of them was the father, reconciled with Robert before Mia was born, and made a choice. Out of fear, out of love, out of not wanting to break the family, she'd finally rebuilt, to never test it, never tell anyone, and let Robert raise Mia as his own without question. Robert, it turned out, had suspected for years and loved her anyway, completely, without needing an answer. The secret hadn't been about betrayal in the way I first feared. It had been about a mother terrified that the truth would cost her daughter a father who'd never once treated her as anything less than his. Mia cried that night, not out of hatred, but out of relief that the distance she'd always sensed but never understood finally had a shape she could hold and set down. She called Robert her father the next morning, same as she always had, and meant it more than ever. As for me, Diane hugged me before I left that night, this time without the desperation, and whispered, "Thank you for not making me carry it alone." I never told Mia I'd read the note before she did. Some secrets you keep not to protect a lie, but to protect the person who trusted you with the truth. I learned something that night I've carried ever since. Love isn't about the facts we're born into, it's about the people who choose to stay anyway. Robert chose Mia every single day for 23 years without needing a piece of paper to prove she was his. And in the end, that's what family really is. Not blood, not paperwork, but the people who show up again and again, especially when it would be easier not to.